Hi, and welcome to Penguins Shootout on Herald-Standard.com. I'm your host, Burchianti, and once again with me, Herald-Standard.com sports writer Derek Day. And the Penguins, since the last time we talked, they went 4-2, and right now, as we talk today on a Monday, the Penguins are in good shape. They're 36-21-5. They're still 7 points in back of the first place New York Rangers, but they are in the 4th seed position as we talk right now, and they're looking pretty good. And the deadline for the trade deadline was today, and everyone was anticipating maybe Nash moving from Columbus and different things, and the Penguins might do something, and maybe their opponents might do something, and actually it was not that much at all, really, was there, Derek?
No, it was kind of a ho-hum trade deadline. There's usually a lot more action going on this day. The deadline's at 3 o'clock, so everything's pretty much in as of now, unless I don't foresee any big names coming out of nowhere. So I think everything's in, but yeah, not too much really to talk about. I mean, not any big names really. There's plenty to talk about, of course, but I guess Penguin fans can breathe a sigh of relief that the price is too high for Rick Nash, because there was talk that the biggest contender for getting in the Rick Nash sweepstakes, if you want to call it that, was the New York Rangers, and there was talk and buzz about him always going to go to the Rangers. Well, as the week progressed and leading up to the deadline, there was talk from Nash's agent, from Columbus's GM, that they're going to demand that Columbus was going to want some big names in return for Nash, I mean, a hefty salary, and Nash can score. We saw what he could do. Yesterday.
Right. He scored a goal
against the Penguins. Scored that opening goal, but yeah, he didn't go anywhere. So that's kind of relief for anyone in the Penguins camp, just because they don't have to worry about facing him with the Rangers down the stretch or possibly in the playoffs.
The Flyers made a push for him too, but they didn't come up with him either. So yeah, it's a good news. We don't want him to go to Flyers or to Rangers if you're a Penguins fan.
Yeah, but one Blue Jacket that did move, Jeff Carter. He was traded. We mentioned him on our last show, and he was traded February 23rd. He's now an LA King. He went out there in exchange for Jack Johnson, the defenseman. I also saw him play yesterday against the Penguins, as well as a conditional first-round pick. So those two of the bigger names, one moved, one didn't. But as far as the names you mentioned last time we spoke, 5 out of the 6 that talked about possibly becoming a Penguin.
Right.
5 of the 6, something happened. Ales Hemsky didn't. Nothing happened with him, as you know. But the big name, possibly as far as bringing some kind of scoring winger, Tuomo Ruutu, Carolina was able to re-sign him to a 4-year deal earlier in the week, last week actually. So he was off the market. Carolina obviously was happy with that, wanted to keep him on the team, as good of a scorer as he is. Hal Gill was traded. He was sent to Nashville. Nashville is a big player in the trade deadline this year, really making a push for a deep postseason run.
They were the only ones that really did anything, yeah.
Yeah.
Major.
Yeah, as well as Montreal. They were kind of a big seller. Some of their names came up. They did some dealing as well this year, as well as Tampa Bay, 2 teams that are... We talked about possibly Montreal for sure was selling, and Tampa Bay's down at the bottom of the standings too. They were kind of cleaning house, so to speak. But the Hal Gill deal, Blake Joffrey and Robert Stanley, and a second-round draft pick in this year's draft. That's what Montreal got in return for Hal Gill. The other Montreal player we talked about, Andre Kostitsyn, he was dealt today to Nashville, so he gets to join up with Hal Gill.
All in the family. He gets to play with
gets to play with those guys. A couple of third-round draft picks, I should say, in next year's draft. So those two were apart for a little while, but are now back on the same team.
The Penguins know Hal Gill well because he played real well for them.
Yeah, it was a pain shadowing Crosby there in that 2010 playoff series. Steve Downey, we mentioned earlier, and Dominic Moore, both of the Tampa Bay Lightning, both of them were dealt. Steve Downey was sent to Colorado for Kyle Quincy, defenseman. And the other one there mentioned, where'd he go? Dominic Moore was now a San Jose Shark. He went out to San Jose, along with a 7th round pick in this year's draft for a 2nd round pick Tampa Bay got in return. So lots of stuff being moving around in the weeks leading up to the deadline, as well as the trade deadline.
The actual deadline day. There wasn't really any earth-shattering deals or anything.
Yeah, I would say the biggest names were Brian Ralston. He's now a Boston Bruin. Came over from the
39-year-old. Yeah.
So they got Brian Ralston and Mike Motto, a forward and defenseman respectively, came over from the New York Islanders to Boston in exchange for Yannick Reindow and Mark Canton, defenseman. Couple of other ones. Johnny Oduya is now with the Blackhawks from the Winnipeg Jets in exchange for a couple of draft picks in next year's draft, second and third rounders. But not really as much trades going on as we thought there were. One side note, may have kind of slipped under the radar, just as note, former Penguin Eric Christensen was traded from the Rangers to the Minnesota Wild. That happened back a couple weeks ago, February 3rd. So it kind of
the shootout king for the Penguins a few years ago.
Just something to note, just to keep tabs on a former player.
I like what Boston got Ralston, right? He's a veteran guy who hasn't done much this year, but who knows, in the playoffs, a guy like that could really help you out.
Yeah.
When you look at the Penguins, they really have to make any kind of move. I mean, it didn't really. You look at them. Where's the weaknesses? I mean, if you had to make any kind of move, what would you think they would do?
Well, maybe possibly bring in some kind of secondary, maybe some kind of minor. If you get one cheap, that was kind of the biggest thing. I think.
Shero said the price was too steep for most of what they.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Bill Guerin deal. I mean, you mentioned Ralston bringing in a veteran. Come playoff, might not do much in regular season, but come playoff time, their experience can be invaluable. Same thing, like Bill Guerin there. I mean, I think the Penguins. I mean, it was a conditional draft pick, meaning however far the Penguins got in the playoffs, the price would step up. I think it started out as a 5th round pick, and then the next round, for each round they advanced, it would go up one. So it ended up being like a 2nd round pick is what the Penguins gave up for Bill Guerin, which. I think he'd trade a 2nd round draft pick for a cup 9 times, or 9 days a week.
Yeah, he was very key veteran presence on that cup winning team.
Yeah, but as far as the Penguins needing anything, I guess you could review it. Penguins fans can view this as a good sign that they didn't make any deals. Meaning, obviously, no matter what they're saying, telling the media or anything like that, they obviously believe that Crosby will come back sometime this year. Otherwise, if they knew in reality that he wasn't, they probably would have made a deal, I would think.
Yeah, but there's a faction of people out there who also think that even without Crosby, even with Malkin the way he's playing, that the Penguins they're still a serious cup contender, even if Crosby doesn't come back.
Yeah, if they keep their play up like they have recently, they can make a deep playoff run, if not into the Stanley Cup Finals. But once again, as far as the cup, I mean, it's hard to say a lot can happen between now and then, but there's always that pesky Western Conference over there. The Red Wings are at it again.
That long record-breaking winning streak at home.
20-some games. They set the new record for consecutive home wins. So, and they're just kind of running away with the Western Conference. So expect them and possibly Chicago, if they can sneak into the playoffs, to be waiting for whatever Eastern Conference team makes it through.
Somehow, just look at the East real quick. Actually, the Detroit and Vancouver are struggling for the number 1 seed. Vancouver has 87 points. Detroit has 85. But Detroit, obviously, the veteran team, and that's the team you look out for. If you were the Penguins and you actually got to the Cup final, you'd rather play Vancouver because Detroit's so veteran savvy. They've been there so much. And the Blackhawks are the 6th seed right now, so they're in there, but it's still tight over there too. There's still a lot to be decided playoff-wise.
Chicago had a rough streak there. They lost about 7 or 8 in a row there, so that kind of really bumped them down.
They turned it around a little bit. Going over the last week of games or plus for the Penguins, let's just go over it real quick because they had some very interesting games here. They started out with a 2-1 loss to Anaheim, which wasn't a great game for them. But then they bounced back. They've had these Saturday, Sunday things going. This is the second one. They played the Flyers at home, and this game was because they're battling the Flyers and they're battling the Rangers and the Devils. These are key games. And in this game, they showed how dangerous they are on the special teams. And in this game, Cook scored to give them 1-0 lead, and then Jaromir Jagr scored 2 goals in like 18 seconds in the first period, and Penguins were down 2-1. And then the game turned. Stahl got a shorthanded goal, tied a game 2-2, and then on the same penalty, on a 5-on-3, or right after that, it was a 5-on-3. Cook got a breakaway, and just the sheer desire outmuscled I think it was Timonen for the puck, got in on a breakaway and scored to make it 3-2. So here the Penguins were shorthanded, got 2 straight shorthanded goals, and went from 2-1 to actually up taking a 3-2 lead. The Flyers tied at 3-3, but then Dustin Jeffrey took advantage of a turnover to make it 4-3. And early in the third period, Dupuis scored 5-3. James Mills scored to make it 6-3, ended up 6-4. That was a real key. Did you see any of that game at all? Or
I watched that game, and it looks like that $7 million off-season signing for
Ilya Bryzgalov
doesn't look too smart right now.
He got yanked after the I think it was the Cook shorthanded goal. He got pulled out of that.
And then Sergei Bobrovsky ends up giving up 3 goals of his own. So it's not goaltending is still an issue in Philadelphia. Anywhere else they seem to be pretty well stocked on that team. If they had a top tier goalie, like say a Fleury or a Lundqvist or something, they would be the hands down favorite to at least get to represent the East in the Cup final. But they really have had goaltending issues ever since Ron Hextall left. They really haven't had a solid #1 goalie, really.
Not a consistent guy, yeah.
No.
And speaking of the Rangers, the team who is #1, the Penguins made another statement, beating them for the second time in a row. They won 2-0 in a complete game. They controlled the entire game, and Marc-Andre Fleury, a landmark game for him in that 2-0 shutout.
Yeah, he recorded his 22nd career shutout, which tied the franchise record held by Tom Barrasso. Which kind of surprising that Barrasso would have that many. I mean, he's a good goalie, but considering the era he played in, where scoring was a lot higher than it is these days, just seems I kind of was surprised it was that high. But Fleury, he probably has just as many 1-goal games as he does shutouts, I would think, because it seems like a lot of times you go through always thinking he's going to pitch a shutout, and then in the last 5 minutes or so they give up a late goal and end up costing the shutout. But it's good to see the Fleury setting that team mark, and I think he's already solidified his mark in Penguins history, even though he's only 27.
Fitting, yeah, and he made 27 saves in that game. Actually, that now that you mention it, and it's so fitting that they're tied because they're so similar personality-wise. Weren't they? Barrasso was known as a very sort of a jerk,
abrasive.
Very abrasive guy is a good name to put it. And Fleury, anyone that knows him, he's always got a smile. He's always a happy guy. The other game I want to highlight real quick, although Malkin had a nice breakaway in that game, I should point out, over beating Lundqvist, one of the best goalies in the league, that ended up being a game-winning goal. Sullivan had a power play goal. Real quick, in the Lightning game, they won 8-1 on Saturday, February 25th, this past Saturday. Unbelievable game offensively for the Penguins. And the one thing about that game is Malkin, Evgeny Malkin, and Rolson, the goalie for Tampa Bay, had a little scuffle where Malkin got into the crease, he got pushed, and he got a little bit mad, and next thing you know, he's scoring from a bad angle. Then he's scoring on a breakaway where he went through the entire team on one of the best highlight goals you'll ever see. Then he had another goal later for a hat trick. And Stahl also had 2 goals, another shorthanded goal. And the Penguins just blitzed them 8-1. So Malkin, of course, is still playing at a high level. Yeah,
and Fleury plays 8-1. You wouldn't think a goalie would have to do much work, but Fleury played excellent as well. And Gino seems to play better when he's angry.
Yeah, he does. And Fleury also, he made 34 saves in that game. It was a great offensive explosion. And they came back the next day, a little bit weak on Sunday. They started out slow, but they came back and beat Columbus 4-2. So
we have Dallas tomorrow, or Wednesday. Dallas Wednesday.
Yes. Upcoming games, they have Dallas, they have the Avalanche on the road. Then they come home for 4 straight games against the Coyotes, Maple Leafs, Panthers, and a big game against the Bruins.
Yeah, a lot of those games against teams that are out of the playoffs right now, so make sure they
make some hay.
Yeah, make the hay while the sun shines. Get those points against the lower teams so they can push for that, hopefully, division title, if not...
at least get the 4 seed.
Yeah.
Yep, well, that'll do it for this week on Penguins Shootout on Herald-Standard.com. See you in 2 weeks.